Hello, my name is Max,
Hey, I'm Twiggy.
and this is
Tech
Tech
A.
A, and welcome back. Today's episode is all going to be about AI. What is AI? The goods, the bads. Why do people use it? Why would they want to use it? And since it's a relatively new topic in the AI space or into the tech space, we will have to separate this into many episodes, discussing the ins and outs, the purposes, what's evolving about it on purpose and the ability, and we can't possibly discuss all of it all at once. So we got to break it up into several episodes. So in today's episode, we are going to just solely discuss AI and the art purposes and the copyright law situation that has already been resolved, but hasn't really been resolved. So I guess the first question of the day would be, what is AI?
What is AI? It is artificial intelligence, and I think it was originally created to make our lives easier. When I first think of AI, I think of robots. I kind of really want a robot to do my laundry because that's probably the most tedious task
Fair.
that I hate doing. Separating and putting into the wash dryer, that's fine. But I'd like to have a robot that folds my laundry.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind a robot or artificial intelligence to do just basic household chores. I could spend the rest of my day kind of just doing this, doing podcasts, doing editing. But even AI is developing tools. Well, humans are developing AI to develop tools to help this kind of job to be easier and less time consuming. But there are some dangers to it. And we'll can get into that in a little bit. But do you use AI all that often?
I've kind of played around with it. I do a lot of photography and some of my editing. I do use a little bit of AI just to do some rendering. I guess more so in the video.
Okay.
I do use some AI to do the rendering to make it faster. Or if I'm looking for a particular look to my videos or photography, I don't per se replace sky or put random things in my pictures, but I allow it to increase the brightness, the highlights, the shadows.
Oh, kind of like an auto like color
Yeah,
correction and stuff like that.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, as a VFX artist myself, I guess we can dive into like how does AI in the art world work, and it's machine learned. So you need to come up with a model, and it has to constantly learn on itself on what to use for, say, sky. So that feature in said program that you're using, not to throw anything under the bus or anything like that. We're not sponsored by anybody, so I guess we could say their names, but I don't really want to bash programs or anything like that right now.
Yeah, we'll leave that for later
Yeah,
episodes.
we'll leave that for later episodes of the problems of certain companies. But the replace sky feature is taking a library of skies, and they're all labeled as skies, and then they have a following attribute of aurora borealis or night or starry night, and it just goes on from their subcategories. And then the AI is saying or learning that that's what it is, and then it takes the idea of, oh well, if it's a moonlit area, well, some of these items are going to have moonlight highlights and shadow and all that, and it's just processing all that information so you don't have to. Before, we would actually have to make a layer and hand paint in highlights and
Yep.
hand paint in shadows, which to the untrained artists, that was a good learning tool. You had to learn the process of why that is. You had to learn the process of what light was and how it functioned in the world. AI is kind of making it easy, but it's dumbing the new artist down.
So
Would you agree or disagree on
I
that?
feel like it's making the artists, and especially like the photography artists, it's making them lazy.
Right.
I understand if they take a bunch of pictures and they just want to change like the highlights and lowlights and shadows and etc. And they took like 1,000 photos, let's say at a wedding shoot, and they don't want to spend hours upon hours upon hours in doing that. And if AI can do make a good product with that, that's fine. I just read recently on a forum, should we give our clients discounts for if we do editing with AI rather than taking the hours to do it? And on the forum, they said no, because they paid you for the work you did during the photo shoot, and they're also paying you for your knowledge. They're not paying you for how much time you're spending to do it. They're paying you for the work.
Right. So basically, I mean, I think some of the answers on that forum, because I think I've read the same forum, some of the answers kind of miss the point of the question. Is the time just for them to be there and take the photos, or were you paying for their editing and the time that it took for their editing? So if you're not paying for that editing time anymore, then where's that extra price going to? Now, to use AI effectively, there is some level of knowledge that you need to know.
Yeah.
Because you got to give it a prompt. You got to know how that prompt functions, and every program is different in their prompts.
Yep. And there's
So-
definitely cost involved too.
Right. And
So-
so you do have to cover that, and the knowledge alone is definitely worth something. All knowledge is worth something. But if you are to the point where it's borderline laziness, then are you really paying for a masterful product, or are you paying for a automated product?
Right.
And the point of automation is to make it less expensive for the consumer. So there is a huge debate going on, regardless of what the Supreme Court had to say about it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the talk around town about AI is AI creating new works to where they're protected by copyright, or is it just a tool to basically take creative works and it's in common use? Is it yours? Is it the original artist's work? Because you got to train that model to take from something.
Yeah, so with that program that they're mentioning, you have to upload 3,000 of your photos in order so it figures out what art style and what editing style you're doing. So I guess in that matter of thinking, it is kind of a cool idea where it's just repeating what you're already doing. But I have an old photography friend when I was figuring out how to edit, and he was like, I don't like how people oversaturate things. I don't like how they bring out colors that weren't originally there. He likes it natural.
Yeah,
And
he's a naturalist.
Yeah, I've always kind of had that idea where somebody takes a picture and they create like this huge vignette, or and they bring out saturation that wasn't there. So like, for example, if it was a very cloudy day and the leaves didn't have much definition to them, and then you go in an editing program and you crank the saturation up and they look like beautiful red and yellow, you're creating something that wasn't there. And Max and I have had this discussion before, but with that program that replaces the sky, people are taking a random picture and then adding, like we said, Northern Lights to it. I love hunting for Northern Lights. It is a pain in the butt. It is a crapshoot. You have no idea when the solar flare is going to happen. You have no idea if certain things are going to hit the earth right. Because you could go out there for 4 hours and you'd get skunked, or you'll be out there for 10 minutes. I've been lucky. I took my best Northern Lights shot back in 2016, a year after I bought my fancy camera.
Right.
So I was lucky in that, but then I also respect the people that go out there and get that perfect shot. And now we're just using a computer program to create that shot and then market it as our own.
Yeah, and my wife, as you know, is a pretty she's a novice hobbyist in photography. You actually sold her camera back in the day, and she uses that to take Northern Lights photos. She's bought better lenses, obviously. than the stock lenses that comes with it. But she gets so frustrated with me because she's sitting there trying to set up her all of her settings for the perfect shot, and I just whip out my Samsung and set it into like an auto dark mode, and it's basically AI is automatically
Yep.
doing the settings already in the processing.
So your phone is doing the work.
The phone did all the work, and I took a better shot than her, but hers is raw, and you can definitely manipulate the raws.
Yeah.
But mine was already processed. Mine's already post-produced.
Yeah, so your
In the
phone
phone.
not only set up the picture, it took the picture and it also edited it.
Yep.
So your phone literally did all the work. How much work did you actually do?
I pointed, and I had to hold the camera still for 4 seconds. And that's about it. I basically had to tell the timer of the shutter speed of how long to stay open, and that was it.
Yeah.
And she's so frustrated, and I'm not allowed, like, I took it upon myself to say I am not going to do that again, because that is, like, to me, it's a disrespect to the photographer. And so, I obviously know the settings, and I know how the camera operates and all that, and she's still learning. And she's learning the right way
Yes.
of going through the motions and all that, and at some point she can either go down the road of using AI to just help her, like,
Right.
just to automate it, or she might be a purist and she just wants to do it the pure way. And to me, the photo is worth more in the pure state than the AI. And as we keep going, like, what did we already? I'll edit all that out. Good thing it's only audio. So, speaking of the legalities of copyright law with AI, last year the Supreme Court actually had a case on just this whole idea of who owns the art from AI. And their statement is this. In August 21st, 2023, and this is coming from Reuters, a work of art created by artificial intelligence without any human input, and that's the key, cannot be copyrighted under U.S. law.
Interesting.
So, in my interpretation, this means that, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not barred by anybody, so I don't practice law, but I can understand it. But here's my interpretation: is that AI does not make an original artwork, and so therefore it cannot be copyrighted for the purpose of intellectual property protections, because the art itself is created by works that may or may not be copyrighted materials. So, however, there's a caveat to that, and the key point of it being without human interaction.
Right.
So, the human interaction, just like you mentioned before, the program forces you to provide your own learning materials for the AI. That is the human interaction and the human manipulation to the learning software, and those works are yours. And then therefore, now that is copyrighted protected material because you have basically put in your own work to it.
Yeah, because you're the creator. You just use AI as a tool.
Right.
AI didn't create your art. You just use it as a tool.
Exactly. And
Which
so,
I'm kind of okay with, but I guess it comes into personal opinion. And if you're selling these works of art, it's also up to your clients if they see value in it or not.
right.
So I'm really torn on it. I see AI as a useful tool for making our lives easier, but I don't think we should create fake art. Do you
Right.
kind of understand what I'm talking about there?
Yes, as in, like, if you're not a 3D modeler, and I've been torn about this idea as a game designer. I'm not a developer because I don't really program, but as a game designer and the art assets involved in making games, do I want to spend the hours 3D modeling a character, or do I want to have an archaic drawing of a character, throw it into an AI to 3D generator, and then it generates the 3D model for me? That to me is a use of automation for that character. However, is it my work of art? Now, I drew it, but I didn't model it. And so there's a conflict there of like, is this game using AI in a ethical way, or am I just being lazy?
Yeah, that's where it kind of comes down to a gray area where part of me wants to say you need to stay in your lane, and if you want something 3D modeled, you'll find somebody who does it.
Right.
But then again, that is not a cheap route of doing anything.
No.
Because they've spent the time to go to school, they've spent the time working on their craft, and they are worth the money that they're paid.
Right. And that goes into even audio.
Yeah.
You got voice actors that have basically they're starving artists, and there's a reason why they're called starving artists is because it's a saturated market. And being a starving artist doesn't mean that you're a painter necessarily or you're a sculptor, but there's the performing arts aspect of it too. An art is an art, and voice actors and even actual physical actors are basically under siege by AI right now. And the Film Actors Guild, or actually it's the Screen Actors Guild, the SAG, went under strike because of this very issue.
Yeah, the writers. Yep.
Yeah, the writers and the actors and the actresses and even voice actors and actresses, they went under strike because they are automating all the motion, they're automating all the voice and the actions using AI. And they're even doing photo scans of individuals and using the Unreal Engine's MetaHuman, which I use a lot because it's really cool to get, like a physical representation of yourself into a video game.
Yeah.
Why not?
Definitely.
And
I feel like didn't EA start doing that in the early 2000s?
yeah, it
where
was
you could
very
upload your
archaic.
picture and it would be like all squared and
Yeah.
kind of like those graphics. Nothing like nowadays.
No, and you got some really funny results.
Yeah.
Because the idea was way ahead of its time.
Sure.
But it was a cool idea.
Right.
And then Epic Games just took it just way past that to where you could use photogrammetry, which we could talk about in a later episode, but get a couple thousand images of an individual surrounding them in different angles. And there you go. You got a 3D model of that individual. Now you just got to rig it, add some joints and bones and muscle tissue on a digital level.
Yeah.
And you got an animated representation of yourself in a game or a movie. If you want to launch yourself off a cliff, you can, and you won't die because you're a digital version of yourself.
Right.
But the danger of it is that there are a lot of audio scams going on using that very same software to steal your voice.
So I believe we talked about that in our previous episode.
Yes.
That if somebody calls you, never say yes or no.
Right. And so we can go into the conversation on that just a little bit on what you shouldn't do in terms of the possibility of AI taking control of your identity, because there's no protection for it. It's so new and it's so advanced. There is no protection for it. And we're, unfortunately, Twiggy and I are putting ourselves at risk just by doing the podcast. And Corridor Digital actually made a video showing exactly how to do it, which is kind of dangerous, but they wanted to put it out there saying, like, this is dangerous, and here's how you can do it, and here's how, if you were a victim of this, here's how they did it. They got ways to basically track it down and get rid of it and save your identity, but it's still a very scary thought.
Yeah, definitely.
People can divorce your wife over that, and you won't have any idea. It's kind of frightening. But institutions now are putting into place of they won't give out any information over the phone unless you give them your entire life story at this point, which is also scary.
Right.
So The idea of hacks with AI is yet another episode all on its own. How to protect yourself, but if you don't want your voice stolen, just be very, very careful on saying yeses and nos on an automated recorded line. There's no real way to prevent that. Even with me just saying that right now, I just put myself at risk.
So usually what I do, even if I'm talking to a doctor's office or whatever, I don't say yes or no. I say correct or incorrect or
Right.
something like that. And
Or this is me.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is he. Other pronouns.
Yeah. And so we can discuss further about fair use, the difference between fair use and copyright. Most of the time, everything that you create and publish is under copyright law as long as it's your own work. Mickey Mouse is in fair use now.
Is it Mickey Mouse or is it Steamboat Willie?
Steamboat Willie, but that is the countdown for every succession of Mickey Mouse year after year after year.
Okay, yeah.
To finally start going into the fair use, and that means Donald Duck will be fair use. All of Disney's legendary characters for like the next 5 years will be fair use, and at some point Mickey Mouse is just Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Like there's not a whole lot you can do. And of course you got some crazy horror films coming out for Mickey Mouse, or the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse at the very least, and I think it's great. But in terms of how long it took for that to happen, this video is going to be copyrighted for 95 years after our death.
And then it's going to be public domain.
And then it'll become public domain after that.
Similar to music,
Right.
because after a certain time, hymns you don't have to give them their copyright. You can just say public domain.
Right. And so I don't really mind if people want to use sound bites or anything like that.
It's fine.
It's all purposeful in the terms of education. But if I made a private work and I wanted to show people, I understand why that's copyrighted. I don't need it copyrighted 95 years after my death.
No.
But
Because we're not going to care, even if the world's still around.
right. Even if we all die from a comet, I still don't care. But I just don't want it to be defamed.
Correct.
That's where I draw the line. But yeah, AI, such a broad topic in just art. We can discuss the purposes after of like outside of art, because it can get really scary.
So before we close on like the whole art thing, there's one funny aspect about AI, because we see these pictures of like there was Biden and Trump. They were doing. It had a picture of them like at a picnic and just different stuff.
Right.
But then if you look at AI does not know how to make a human hand.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you're wondering if it's real or fake, look at the hands. If they are malformed, that is made by AI.
Yeah, and if you can definitely tell if somebody tried to fix it as well.
Yep.
Amateur artists and even professional artists have a really hard time blending. You know, one picture, like you can cut out the hand and try to replace it, but you'll always see just little ridges. No matter how good that artist is, it's always going to be there. It's how good you can blend it, and if it's moving around a lot, you're not going to notice unless you're really looking for it. Now, I'm going to keep referencing Corridor Digital because they're kind of like the whole reason why I got into VFX in the first place. But they have a show called VFX Artists React, and they break down even like UFO videos, and they break down how it's either VFX or faked or however it is, because they're professionals in the industry. They know how to point out all the intricacies of all of that.
So that kind of gets my mind going. Did they possibly try to break down the moon video?
Yes, they did, and I don't remember the full details of it. I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
Okay, I'd be curious to see about that.
Yeah, we could definitely look into that as just a episode breakdown. We had some video difficulties. This is why everything's on audio. I don't have a problem admitting any of that. We're relatively new in the podcast space, and the whole point of the podcast is to show how to do a podcast with consumer goods. Now, does that mean that we don't use video?
So we'll eventually use video, but we ran into this morning is unfortunately my laptop is a little antiquated. It's got a lovely i7 processor, but it's 7th gen, so we're talking about it's 5-6 years old. And OBS,
It's an old boy.
Yeah, OBS was just refusing to give us decent video.
Yeah, and the audio got choppy. It was a good idea until it wasn't, and so.
Also, if you want us to help us on our journey, we are a nonprofit organization of Checkpoint Saved. We can definitely take donations right on our website. Our website is checkpointsaved.tech.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go through and actually add video to this. Now, it's not gonna be us talking. There's not gonna be a green screen and all that, but I'll definitely make it comical in some way, shape, or form. Maybe like a talking head, like South Park kind of thing. I don't know. I got tons of ideas running through my brain of how to even do that, but the point is to show that even if you don't have a camera or you don't have a working setup, doesn't mean that you can't do it. It's just you're gonna have to change your idea, and sometimes you're gonna have to change your idea on the fly. So,
Yep.
we're kind of up in the air on future topics, but when we know what those are, we'll release episode 4 here pretty soon. And so this has been Max.
This is Twiggy.
And we are Tech
Tech
A.